We really don't know how long the human body can survive without food. The reason, it's considered inhumane to study starvation. We do know, with adequate water supply, the body can survive much longer, anywhere from 21 to 40 days, based on research. However, the effects on energy and health deteriorate quickly. Various websites suggest an average of 2,000 calories is needed to survive in an emergency situation. Hello, my name is Dennis Maynard. I am a real estate broker in Los Angeles. September was Emergency Preparedness Month. I know, I'm behind on getting these videos out, but it's important. Don't wait until the store shelves are empty. In this video, we're going to go over how to create an emergency food plan. This is a broad overview of the subject. I'm not really doing any reviews of food, but rather aggregating important information and considerations for food, including food safety, types of food, and thoughts on appropriate uses when planning. We will start by breaking down types of food into several categories, including fresh food on hand, frozen food, canned food, and emergency food. Each one of these has different considerations to them and requires a little planning to be one step ahead. Please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's get started on this TNT. Disaster can strike at any time. In the two previous videos, we discussed creating an emergency plan and water preparedness. Here are the links to the playlist above. In the first video, I described the process of planning as thinking ahead, having a plan, being prepared, and execute the plan. With this in mind, what are the considerations for an emergency food plan? The first consideration is time. How much time do you have before the food spoils? Breaking this down, we have fresh foods such as perishable items in the refrigerator and countertop foods such as breads and fruits. Some will last longer than others. The next section is frozen food, which will be fine as long as the power is on. If the power goes out for any extended period of time, the food will either need to be cooked or deemed unsafe. Another source is canned food, which is excellent for long-term storage. Last, there are dried foods such as emergency rations, dehydrated food, and freeze-dried foods stored in long-term packaging. This is the category we're going to be spending the most time on as considered long-term food storage at 5 years up to 25 years. Buy it once, sleep well for 25 years. Seems silly? These are the same items sent by FEMA and other aid organizations in an emergency. Fresh foods are tricky. It needs to be eaten within a certain amount of time or it will spoil. I did attend culinary school, so I can speak on the subject. This will be brief and it should not be taken as a whole topic. This is just be a quick primer. Leafy greens tend to spoil extremely quick, while other vegetables will last 4 to 7 days at room temperature. Apples are hardy at 4 to 8 weeks. Root vegetables can be stored even longer. It all depends on the temperature and the climate. Breads may last just a few days. Uncooked meat will spoil at room temperature within 2 hours. The danger zone for food is 40 degrees to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the temperature that bacteria will grow. Time and temperature are what lead to foodborne illnesses along with cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is when you don't clean a surface, use pots, or your hands in contacting different foods. This is not a food safety course, but it is important to know what the key aspects of what can make you sick. I will leave a link to the USDA website in the comments section below. Frozen foods fall into the same category as fresh food. The only caveat is how long can it be kept frozen? Once the internal temperature begins to thaw above 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the food will need to be prepared within 72 hours, provided it can be held at an internal temperature lower than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, 72 hours is the general rotation for any prepared food in restaurants before it's tossed. This includes prepared casseroles, sauces, and other items. Fresh ingredients, such as dairy products, will last until their use-by dates are provided, as long as they're stored in a refrigerated environment. Cheese can be stored below 59 degrees Fahrenheit or cellar temperatures for my wine drinkers out there. Be aware, storing food at proper temperatures will aid in preventing foodborne illness. Canned food is an excellent way to prepare for emergencies. There are two types, canned at home and canned by a manufacturer or store-bought. Home canning is an excellent way to preserve food, especially if you have a garden. Generally, the canning process protects food from microorganisms and reactions with oxygen. Proper canning includes a careful selection and washing of fresh food, pickling, hot packing, and adding acids and/or processing jars in boiling water. Because the process of canning brings temperatures above boiling, this will kill much of the bacteria, yeast, and molds in acidic foods. In short, this is a cost-effective way to keep perishable foods for an extended period of time. There is a fantastic resource from the USDA in conjunction with the University of Georgia. I'll leave the link in the comments section. Commercially canned food is another great alternative. We are generally referring to the metal cans, although the principles apply to the jars as well. Again, canning is a high heat process that kills microorganisms. The guidelines are not to eat any cans that are bulging, rusting, leaking, or have any really large dents in them. There are two types of dates on cans, best by and use by. The best by date is recommended time for the best quality product according to the manufacturer. The use by date refers to the time when the product will be at its peak freshness. Over time, as with any canned food, the nutrient quality deteriorates. Is it still edible? Well, if the can is intact and it was stored properly, generally, yes. Canning protects food from light and oxygen, the two things that break down food. While many canned foods have use-by dates on them, they can last longer. According to the USDA, high-acid foods such as tomatoes and fruits, they last for about 18 months. Low-acid foods such as meats, vegetables, can keep for up to 2 to 5 years. Any canned food product is recommended to be used within a couple years for the best possible product. Temperature is also a factor. Canned foods should be stored at lower than 85 degrees. Temperatures of 100 degrees or more can be harmful to canned goods. According to the Can Manufacturers Institute, trillions of cans of food have been consumed without a single reported incident of foodborne illness. Canned food is also cheaper than fresh food and frozen food, and the containers are generally recyclable and reusable. The only downside to canned food is storage, size, and weight. We will discuss this further in the final section, Making the Plan. Emergency food and rations come in all sizes and types. Again, there are homemade and commercially produced foods. Briefly, homemade rations include items like ship's biscuits, jerky, dried fruits and meats, South African biltong, and Native American pemmican. All of these will require some equipment to make. However, if you enjoy cooking, these can be really fun avenues to explore and can be tasty. Originally created by the Native Americans, pemmican provides a tremendous number of calories per weight and can keep at room temperature for a really long time. I first heard of pemmican while reading about Ernest Shackleton and the Arctic exploration of the Endurance. Shipwrecked and stranded, pemmican supplemented the crew's diet for over 2 years while floating on ice. Native Americans would survive winters with pemmican. It is an interesting subject, and the food is definitely worth exploring. I will link a few videos on pemmican and biltong. The channel 2 Guys in a Cooler is really fantastic for cured meats. I haven't explored ship's biscuits as of yet. There are many companies out there to purchase emergency food from, most notably ReadyWise, Mountain House, and My Patriot Supply. There are 2 types of food essentially: emergency rations and freeze-dried or dehydrated foods. Dehydrated and freeze-dried meals come in individual packaged, multi-serving pouches, and number 10 cans. My Patriot Supply is by far the largest and least expensive. The food shelf life of dehydrated food is upward of 25 years, and the calorie per dollar is the best. ReadyWise has an excellent selection as well, even options for those who prefer organic and gluten-free. My favorite freeze-dried food, for taste and also it's more expensive, is Mountain House. Mountain House is widely used by astronauts, military, and for the outdoors. They have been in business for 49 years, and the shelf life is upward of 30 years. Other freeze-dried brands are Backpacker's Pantry and ReadyWise Adventure Meals. So, what is the difference between dehydrated and freeze-dried? Dehydration is a 1,000-year ancient method of preserving food. It removes about 80 to 95% of all moisture. Pemmican, jerky, and others fall into this category. Freeze-dried food has been around since the early 1900s. It is a process of freezing food in a vacuum that pulls out 98 to 99% of the moisture from the food. Both work great, but freeze-drying has several advantages. First, longer shelf life with a lighter product. Next, you can also freeze-dry more types of food. Also, the food retains more flavor and nutrition. Last, it is faster to rehydrate, which means less cook time and fuel. There are two primary factors we are concerned with: the amount of water you need and the length of time to prepare. This is why Mountain House and freeze-dried meals are more expensive. It takes less water and you don't need heat to reconstitute the food. Hot water added to the food prepares the meal in about 10 minutes, half the time. Dehydrated foods require more water and longer cook times or more heat, therefore more weight. Some will reconstitute without heat. This is an important consideration we will discuss in the final section of Making the Plan. To review, freeze-dried and dehydrated foods are excellent options for long-term food storage. All have excellent flavor for dried food. You can grab a sampler from the companies and try them out. I'll leave some links below. The other type of emergency food are food rations or emergency rations and MREs, or meals ready to eat. These typically have a shelf life of 5 years. They do not require water to be eaten, although MREs may require a small amount of water. Some MREs have small heaters that are activated with water. MREs are a full meal, providing an average of 1,200 calories a meal. Rations take up little space for the calories, while MREs take up a lot of space. Rations are about 200 to 400 calories per bar. There are many brands of MREs out on the market, and the prices may vary along with the taste. A little bit of time on the internet will help you figure it out. For rations, the top brands are Ready Hour by My Patriot Supply, SOS Brands, and Daytrex, to name a few. Rations are really cheap, so there's no excuse not to keep some in an emergency bag. MREs are the most expensive, this one costing $10. Energy bars are an alternative as well, such as Millennium bars. Items such as Cliff bars will not last as long and should not be relied upon for long term. One more point to touch on. Freeze-dried coffee is essential, especially if you love coffee. You can go to Costco and grab a Giant Folders or Chaser's Choice. I was surprised in researching that Franklin's Coffee by My Patriot Supply had some of the highest ratings among taste tests. Also consider hot cocoa such as Swiss Miss, or beverage powders such as Gatorade, Crystal Light, and more. Whey powder and powdered milk should also be considered. These are great items of great comfort and also make fantastic barter items. Let's not forget our furry friends. Keeping a supply of dry and canned pet food is important. Consider how long you will need to go without being able to get more food and keep a rotating supply. Heating sources are important for warmth and cooking food. Camping burners are ideal for boiling water and food prep. MSR, Jetboil, and other brands make lightweight, easy-to-use burners. Larger systems by Coleman, BioLite, and more are made for car camping. Also, don't forget the grill in the backyard. Take the time to think about your needs to determine what the best solution is. There are plenty of options when the power is out and the gas is shut off. Finally, it's time to make the plan. It can be difficult to plan for all circumstances, so what we will want to do is consider the amount of time, the amount of water, the weight, and mobility. Time is something we've been discussing throughout this video. Each type of food offers different amounts of time before spoiling. Fresh foods and frozen foods will need to be consumed quicker than canned or dried foods and emergency rations. Water is something else to consider. How much water is needed to prepare the food? Fresh and frozen foods may not need water. Dried foods, such as dried fruits, nuts, and meats, will likely not need water. Emergency foods, such as Mountain House and My Patriot Supply, will need water to prepare. Last, emergency rations and MREs do not require water to consume, with the exception of beverages. Not to be Captain Obvious, the weight is a major factor. Consider if you will be staying in place or leaving your home. Having to rush out the door is different than being able to stay in place without power or a heating source. If you are rushing out the door, it should be portable, compact, and lightweight. If you are sheltering in place, heavier, bulkier foods are only limited by your ability to store them. We just talked on mobility. I'm going to quickly break this down. So, if you're going to be able to leave by car, it will come down to whatever you can manage loading and hauling. If you are leaving by foot, rations and dried foods are your best friend. They are lightweight and can provide calories as needed. Let's work backwards from what we've discussed. On average, the human body needs around 2,000 calories per day. Keeping rations and dried food in a bug-out bag can save your life. There is no reason not to have them. How long should you plan for? Well, it depends. How long will it take you to get to your next planned safe location? I hear 72 hours is enough. In a situation where you're going out on foot, water weight should be a priority over food weight. Less is more. One last note. A general rule of thumb is not to have a bug-out bag weigh more than 25% of your body weight. This will help prevent injuries. This small package contains 3,600 calories and just under 2 pounds for less than $8. Skip the Starbucks and throw one of these in your bug-out bag. If you are able to travel by car, again, how far is your travel time? What will you do if you get halfway and you can't use your car anymore? You're now on foot. These are things to consider. This is where the larger water containers and emergency foods come in. Both of these items have the additional benefit if all other food sources expire. Keeping enough for you to sustain yourself and your family for an emergency period. How long should you plan for? Up to you. If I lived in remote Alaska, winter lasts 8 months of the year. I'm going to calculate differently than if I live in Southern California, where I can go fishing. For myself, I calculated about 2 to 3 weeks of rations and emergency food after my canned and fresh food. It is good for 25 years. It's not expensive. Speaking of canned food, a solid trip to the 99-cent store or Costco will yield enough canned food and dry grains or beans to be well stocked. If you cook regularly, this is a non-issue. If you only buy frozen TV dinners, I suggest you take a cooking class right away. You can eat better than that. Remember, Postmates and DoorDash are not going to be open in an emergency. As for fresh food, if you sustain yourself on salads and PBJ, then you're going to go through those items very quickly. Eat fresh foods first and then work into other items. If you lose power, don't open the refrigerator door for as long as possible in the first 24 hours. The freezer should hold temperature for that long. Eventually, grab the Yeti and toss the frozen items in with ice if you can procure it. Other considerations we haven't gone over. Can you plant a garden in an emergency? Are you in a place that grows produce well year-round? It might be worth investing in seeds as well that grow easily in a pinch. We just laid out a food plan strategy starting from an extreme emergency to the power going out. The greatest factor is time. How long will this food stay edible? And how long do you need to have food for? Working backwards from the bug-out bag to a shelter in place and determining the likelihood of each situation will determine the need. Being over-prepared is better than being under-prepared. It offers you the opportunity to be the Good Samaritan in an emergency situation. Please leave your comments below and let me know what you think about this video. I would love to hear any suggestions or other videos, that's fine, link other videos to this one as well.